Thank you for attending this webinar. My name is Nadia, and I'll be the facilitator for today's session. I'm a law student doing a clinical placement at CPLEA. Matt, who is CPLEA's communications coordinator, is also in the meeting. Throughout the presentation, he'll be putting helpful resources in the chat, so keep an eye out for that. This webinar will talk about how to make a successful AISH package. According to the Government of Alberta website, AISH is a financial and possible health benefit for eligible Albertans with a permanent medical condition that prevents them from earning a living. Applying for AISH can be confusing, so we're hoping to clear some things up today. The Centre for Public Legal Education respectfully acknowledges that we are located across Treaty 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10 territories, and respects the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our vibrant community. We have a disclaimer for this presentation. So this presentation contains legal information and is not intended to be legal advice. A quick thank you to our funders, the Alberta Law Foundation and the Department of Justice Canada. Now, we have a few housekeeping items before we dive in. We are recording today's presentation. It will be available on our YouTube channel to watch on demand shortly. We will also have a Q&A period at the end of the presentation. You can type your questions into the Q&A box throughout the presentation, but we will address them during the Q&A portion only. And finally, when you exit today's webinar, you will be prompted to complete a short survey about the presentation. We kindly ask you to take a minute to do so, to share about how we did today, as well as other topics you would like to learn about. Our goal at CPLEA is to make the law understandable for Albertans. We are a nonprofit organization that serves all of Alberta. We provide legal information and education in various formats, including web, print resources, videos, webinars, a blog, and more. Beyond sharing with Albertans what the law says, we aim to empower them to use the law in their lives. You can visit www.cplea.ca to get started. Now, today's presentation will be a panel discussion. We are pleased to welcome the following folks to our panel. Teresa Makarewich is the Program and Services Manager at Voice for Albertans with Disabilities and has been with the organization for 7 years. In her position with VAD, she assists individuals with forms like AISH, CPPD, and DTC. She has been an educational assistant, executive assistant, office manager, and event coordinator in her past work experiences, giving her a vast range of skills. For the last decade, she has been an avid roller skater, learning the sport of roller derby. We also have Andrew Green with us here today. Andrew is a lawyer, former social worker, and disabled person who has been involved in AISH, income support, CPPD, and disability tax credit applications and appeals with ECLC for over 4 years. With AISH medical eligibility appeals, ECLC continues to see a 90% success rate. Much of that success is due to an understanding of what should be contained in an application. So we have several questions for you all today. And our first one is, what is AISH? So if Teresa, you would like to answer first, and then Andrew can add to that.
So AISH is a provincial benefit that provides health and financial benefits to eligible adults with permanent and severe medical condition that prevents them from earning a living full-time. Your disability must be diagnosed as both severe and indefinite to qualify for the program.
Awesome. Andrew, anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just throw in a couple of things there. So some people sometimes wonder this year, the amount of AISH is $1,863 per month. Generally, health benefits are provided with that. The other things that people should be aware of is that there are things that AISH calls general and financial eligibility. So on top of being medically eligible, you have to meet certain general eligibility criteria and financial eligibility criteria as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Our second question here is who can apply for AISH? So Teresa, if you would like to answer first.
Thank you. Any individual with a disability transitioning to adulthood, so at 17 years and 6 months, and adults aged 18 to 64 can apply. Individuals at age 64 can apply for senior benefits before turning 65. Again, individuals must be diagnosed with a severe and permanent major in Section 5 of the medical, an indefinite in Section 8 of the medical, and you'll need to have a doctor to fill out the medical portion of the AISH applications.
Andrew, do you have anything to add?
Now, I'm just going to go back to what I said in the first question and just mention a couple of more things about that general eligibility and financial eligibility. So you have to be ordinarily a resident of Alberta. To receive AISH, you have to be 18, but as Teresa said, you can begin the application process before you're 18. You have to be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. What else? Someone who has a severe handicap, which is most of what I think we're going to be talking about later, so I won't mention that too much. And then finally, I mentioned financial eligibility, which includes both assets and income requirements. And I won't go into those in detail other than to say that they do exist and that it's important that people understand them throughout the application process.
Awesome. So our next question here is, how do you apply for AISH? So Andrew, if you'd like to answer first.
Sure. So I'm going to suggest that people want to do something a little bit different when they apply for AISH. Don't start with the application process. Start by having a conversation with your doctor. That is the best place to begin. What you want to do is the doctor who you hope is going to be filling this out, you want to make sure that they're on side. And not just, will you fill out this form for me? But I'm thinking about applying for AISH. To be successful in that, there are two things that my doctor is going to have to confirm. One is that I'm currently unable to earn a living, and that I will permanently be unable to earn a living. And ask them how they feel about that. Ask them how they view your current health. Sometimes people will just bring in the form, and either the physician may be unaware of that criteria, or the patient hasn't discussed it, and you don't really know what the physician is going to put down. So that's the starting point. After that, I'll just say that there are two parts to the application process, really. There's what used to be called a Part A and a Part B. Part A is the part that the individual fills out, and Part B is the part the physician fills out. They can be done electronically or in physical form. They're both submitted to AISH, and you're good to go.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Teresa, is there anything you'd like to add?
Not too much. They just need to meet the age, residency, medical, and financial eligibility criteria. And they have to be willing to meet these requirements for the entire time they receive benefits. So again, you must meet the medical and the financial eligibility to qualify.
Thank you. So question 4 is, what must you include in your AISH application? Andrew, I'll let you answer first, and Teresa, you can add afterwards.
Okay. I think Teresa's going to talk about some of the documents, but what I'm going to talk about is back to that physician a little bit. In their Part B, in the portion that they're filling out, they need to strongly comment on the impact of your disabilities on your current and future ability to earn a living. And those are key to having a successful application. If physicians don't do that, it's generally a weaker application. Sometimes AISH will be able to determine that from other things that the physician is saying. But the most important step is to see if you can have your physician comment on current and future ability to earn a living. I'll turn it over to Teresa, who I think is going to talk about some of the specific documents.
Thanks, Andrew. So yeah, some of the specific things you need for an AISH application. You need copies of your IDs for yourself, your spouse, and any children. You need a social insurance number for all adults, Alberta healthcare numbers for all family members. You need proof of an Alberta address, so something that shows the applicant's address. For people that do not have ID, you can always go to the library and get them to send you a postcard with your name on it. That will give you a piece of ID with a piece of mail with your name and address on it. If you're not a Canadian citizen, you'll need your record of landing paperwork. They ask for work history for the last 4 jobs with start and end dates, and they want the reason that you left that position. They need a copy of the power of attorney or trustee information if that's applicable to your application. An income support stub or a 30-day bank statement of all bank accounts. If you are receiving income support benefits, all you need is the most recent income support stub, a copy of that. You need statements for any employment insurance, Canada Pension Plan, disability, pension, or any other income that you have coming in. You need to have the value of any vehicles you own, investment statements or trust fund statements, mortgage and tax assessments. And then if you own a farm or business, there's a long list of other needed items that you need for that as well for more financial information. Other than that, VAD has a checklist that they give to everybody for appointments, so you can always call us for that information if you need it.
Awesome, thank you. So our next question is, who can help you prepare your AISH application? Before I turn it over to the panelists, I want to highlight that Workers Resource Center is a resource that helps to fill out AISH applications. So I'll let Andrew answer first, and then Teresa can add to it.
Sure. Traditionally, the Edmonton Community Legal Centre has been focused on doing AISH and income support appeals. Currently, we're also piloting a program where we're assisting people from application to appeal. That is, our goal is to streamline things for people so that it takes as little time as possible. As people have been through the AISH application process are aware, it can often be frustratingly long when you're waiting for benefits. So we are one of the organizations that are currently piloting assisting with applications. And of course, as usual, and as we have done for quite a number of years, we also do AISH and income support appeals for those who have received a denial.
Thank you, Andrew. Teresa, do you have something to add?
I could just say that Voice of Albertans with Disabilities helps with form assistance. We do in person in the Edmonton area and then by phone and virtual across the province. We do the AISH application and the AISH denial process, but when it comes to appeals, we send them to the Edmonton, Calgary, or Lethbridge Community Legal Centre or the Calgary Workers Resource Centre for the appeal process.
Awesome, thank you. So our next question is, what is the cost to apply for AISH? So Teresa, if you'd like to answer first.
For sure, there should be no cost to apply for AISH. The only thing that you should be paying for is the medical form, and that is the fee charged by the physician. And doctor fees can range anywhere from $50 to $500, depending on the physician's price list. So always check before. Those on income support need approval from income support before completing the doctor's report, because it's very tough to get reimbursement after the fact. And if you need to pay for the doctor's fee out of pocket, keep that for tax purposes, the receipt.
Awesome, thank you. Andrew, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I'm going to agree completely that there are no financial costs to applying. I'm going to mention something that I previously mentioned in the last question, though, and say, be prepared that there is another kind of cost, and it's your energy. This process is going to take a little while. There's going to be oftentimes some moving between physicians to get appropriate information. So it may be going back to specialists you haven't seen for a while. And the final part is, remember that your physician, your family physician, or the person filling out the form is your greatest ally, but they're certainly going to have a cost of time to them. So try to be, in this frustrating process, as respectful as possible to that physician who is going to be spending time on your application and hopefully putting in as much detail as possible.
All right, thank you. So question 7 is, how does the government make decisions about AISH applications? So Andrew, I'll let you have the floor first.
In short, they should be determining that someone is generally eligible. Then they determine if someone is medically eligible. And then after that, they determine if someone is financially eligible. That doesn't say very much. Let me just say that I think those of us who have been involved in the AISH application and appeal process would say that sometimes we feel like there isn't a great deal of consistency in the way that individual applications are assessed. But the most important part is the medical eligibility portion. That is the portion where they try to determine, are you able to work now? And will you be able to work after rehabilitative or remedial therapy in the future? I'm not going to go into those details because I know Teresa is going to do that in a moment. But what I want to say about that is, one of the most frustrating and difficult experiences in this process is for people who have a disability, who go through and they get a denial. Because it not only is a financial stressor, but it's something else. It is some outside organization, in this case, a government organization, telling you that they don't feel like your disability is severe enough. And that's a tough one to handle. Let me just say that really, in reality, what they're trying to say is you don't meet the criteria as they've assessed them. And sometimes they make mistakes. So certainly reach out to other organizations if you get to that point of a rejection. I know that I said, I'm pretty sure Teresa is going to cover the specifics about how they assess, and I'll let her do that now.
Thanks, Andrew. So like Andrew was saying, there's some medical eligibility and financial eligibility, but there's 3 criteria that need to be met. And that's the mental/physical functioning needs to be impaired. The impairment must substantially limit your ability to earn a living and is permanent. And that means there's no remedial therapies available to improve your ability to earn a living. And a remedial therapy is anything that the doctor has prescribed or things like vocational training that could help you find a position. So one of the other things that AISH also expects you to look for, accept and maintain reasonable employment. If you are able to work, they expect you to work, and they expect you to make use of any training or rehabilitation opportunities, just like Andrew had mentioned. So you also need to be able to show eligibility again at a later date. So they could audit you at any point and say that they need you to show those eligibility criteria again over time.
Awesome. Thank you. So we'll head over to question 8, which is, what can you do if your AISH application is not approved? So Andrew, if you want to answer first.
Well, assuming that you have not talked to an organization that does appeals already, do that immediately. And when I say immediately, if you've received what's called a medical eligibility denial letter, what you will notice at the bottom of that letter is that it states that you have 30 days in which to appeal. It may be that filing an appeal immediately is appropriate, or it may be a matter of gathering some more medical information. But the sooner that you can make that appointment, and usually I know for us and the other organizations who do appeals, it's often done over the phone. You would send in your documents, we'd look them over and try and assess things, but we'd ask that you do that as soon as possible so that we can fit within that 30-day window. There's another reason why, even if you're not going to be appealing right then, that it's important to begin early, is because the organization that's doing the appeal, or hopefully doing the appeal, is going to have a really good sense of what the gaps are in your application. And at that point, there is a 1-year limit on providing new medical. And that 1-year limit starts the day that you receive the medical eligibility decision letter. So 1 year seems like a long, long time. Why is Andrew saying, gee, start as soon as possible if it's a year? Because that doesn't really make sense. But I'll tell you what my experience of that's been. And a lot of people with disabilities, when they think about this, say, yes, of course. How long does it take to make an appointment with your doctor? How long does it take to make another appointment with specialists who are involved in your treatment? How long will it take to get letters back from them? And so beginning that process really soon, really quickly is important, because that 1 year gets eaten up fairly quickly. And at the end of the 1 year, the only option is to begin the process all over from the beginning again. So I know Teresa has some comments, and I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you. So Voice of Albertans with Disability doesn't do the appeal process, but we do the denial process. So we help people with an appointment with the denial letter to determine what's missing or needs more information as listed in that denial letter. We work with the denial portion to create a letter for the doctor outlining areas of concern that need further explanation or documentation. And we provide a letter to AISH letting them know that we're not appealing, but submitting more information within that 12-month period. And then we send the appealant home with homework of what they need to gather with doctor or financial information and resubmit it for further assessment. Often applicants need 3 things. It's generally the basic form letter put together with it's personalized, but more supporting documentation. And that comes out of section 5 of the medical portion, where it's asked for details and symptoms. Doctors often put things like see above, chronic fatigue, 1 lines, and they need to have actual details in there. rejection from training opportunities. So if you are unable to work full-time, you're probably unable to train full-time. So then they need something from a vocational or return to work type training opportunity to show that you do not qualify for that. And that will check off the box that you tried that opportunity. And then the last thing that they usually ask for is proof that there's no remedial therapy that will make the condition better or go away. And so we help go through and help determine what's needed out of that information and send them home with homework. And then when it comes to submitting an appeal form within the 30 days, we let people know that if they don't do the homework of what's missing, the denial will be re-denied because they need at least 3 weeks before an appeal date for panel review of any new information. So if you get a denial letter and you don't go for an appeal immediately with one of the other organizations and you want to do the denial process, VAD is able to help with that. And again, you've got a minimum of 3 weeks before an appeal that information has to be submitted. So that's how we work with the appeals or the denials, sorry.
All right, thank you. So we'll move on to question 9. How many times can you actually apply for AISH? So Teresa, if you would like to answer first.
Okay, I don't know how many times you can actually apply. I do know that you have to go through the application process, the denial process, and the appeal process before reapplying. And you do have to wait that 365 days before you start a new application. So maybe Andrew can talk to this one a little bit more.
Sure. The short answer is you can apply an infinite number of times in your life, but you don't want to. What you want to do is to limit the number of times that you have to apply for AISH, hopefully only to one, and to make it successful on that first application. But if you don't, if one of two things occurs, 365 days pass from the date where you receive, or the date when the medical eligibility letter is dated, then you can reapply and they will not consider anything that they considered for the previous application. So you begin again with a completely fresh application. The other possibility is that you go through the appeal process and you are unsuccessful. When you receive the decision of the panel, AISH also receives the decision and they close your file and you can reapply the next day, but you will need all fresh information for that.
Okay, thank you. And now to our final prepared question. What do AISH recipients have to do after getting accepted? So Teresa, if you'd like to answer first.
Okay, so they will receive an intake call. I always tell people if you get a letter, you're probably been denied. If you get a phone call, you're probably going to be accepted. And then benefits are paid via direct deposit into the account. And if needed, AISH can assist with finding a financial administrator. You'll get a monthly statement after your deposit is made. The statement also includes important messages from AISH. And an important thing to note is there's a gap between approval time and first payment. So sometimes it could be up to 6 weeks or more once you've been approved before any money hits your account.
Awesome, thank you. Andrew, if you would like to add to that.
Sure, I'm going to say the same thing again, but just in a little bit different way. I'm going to go back to something I said at the beginning, to one of the earlier questions. I talked about general eligibility, medical eligibility, and financial eligibility. So if you pass the general eligibility, they move on to medical eligibility. If you don't pass medical eligibility, they send you a medical eligibility decision letter. And they say, we don't think you're medically eligible for AISH for the following reasons. But if you pass that, Or if you submit more information and then become eligible, or third, you go to an appeal and you become eligible because a panel can say, we don't agree with AISH's decision and we're going to reverse it. Then the next step is financial eligibility. And often after medical eligibility, AISH quietly works on that on their own, and you won't even know that they're doing it, but they may ask you for a little bit of follow-up information and they might not. After that's done, then is, as Teresa's already said, assuming they've approved all of those different areas, they will call and schedule a commencement meeting. And the commencement meeting is to discuss onboarding somebody with AISH, and they'll talk about a commencement date of benefits. They'll ensure that you understand the reporting requirements and all of those things. And the commencement date, I'll just end by saying, AISH decides a commencement date for benefits. Under the Act, this can be appealed, and it's a separate appeal. So someone may receive a commencement date and they don't agree. There are specific criteria in the Act, and it's when AISH had enough information to determine the person had a severe handicap and had everything for general medical and financial eligibility. It's a bit overwhelming, but what I'd say is it's worth just making a quick call once you get a commencement date, just to say, is this an appropriate commencement date given what's happened over the last 6 months, year, sometimes 18 months or 2 years for some people? And I think that's all I'd have to say about that.
Awesome. Thank you. So with that, what else would you like to know? We'll open it up to participants to write their questions in the Q&A box in Zoom. All right, here's a question. If the applicant is a beneficiary for RDSP and RESP, would it still be considered as income for the applicant? So Andrew, if you'd like to tackle this question first.
Yes. So this will go back to something that I said and didn't really go into very much. I mentioned financial eligibility, and as Teresa said, that has to be maintained not just at the application stage, but all the way through when you're receiving these benefits. So those are absolutely assets, but for example, the RDSP, I can't remember off the top of my head the RESP, but the RDSP is an exempt asset, which means you have to tell AISH about it, but they don't count it towards your assets. The income from an RDSP is considered partially exempt, which means they go through a calculation and determine that part of this is exempt and part of it is not as you're receiving. So it's probably good to talk to somebody who's familiar with the financial eligibility criteria if you've got a more complicated financial situation, and they can go through this and work it out specifically in your case.
All right, Teresa, would you like to add
on that? I'm just looking at the application right now. So LIRA's locked-in retirement account, registered disability savings plans, and RDSP are both considered exempt, but you have to report them. And an RESP is not considered exempt.
Thank you.
According to the application.
Another question is talking about the last 4 job history needed. Does that mean the last 4 jobs, even if the client last worked years ago? Teresa, if you'd like to take that.
What I say to people is, as best as possible, as much information as you can provide. So they ask for 4 jobs with the start and end dates. And if you can go back to the last 4 positions, then that's great. If you can't, just as much information as possible is what I tell people.
Awesome. Thank you. Here's another question. What happens if you don't get along with your AISH worker? Andrew, if you'd like to tackle that first.
Yeah, it's going to depend upon the specific situation. On a monthly basis, you may not have to have very much contact with that AISH worker. So you may be able to just continue on with the benefits and not have to deal with them. However, there may come to a point where there's a bit of a conflict where you're saying, hey, I'm trying to get this personal benefit and you're disagreeing that I'm eligible or something else. The key is, even if you're not getting along, try to be as polite as possible. But of course, you also have to say, I disagree. I don't think you're correct on that. I'd like to hear that from somebody else. And it may be speaking to that individual supervisor. It may be speaking to another worker. It's really going to depend what the specific issue is. At times, some benefits are appealable, some are not. So you may want to reach out to a legal clinic or another organization that does appeals to see if what you're dealing with is something appealable.
Awesome. Thank you. Teresa, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I'm in agreement.
All right. So another question. What do you do if the client doesn't have a doctor? What would the process look like going forward for them? Teresa, if you'd like to answer first.
We suggest that people start with 811 or albertafindadoctor.ca and ask if they're willing to have an AISH client as the patient. And then we say that they need to see that doctor for at least 6 months with multiple visits for the doctor to be able to get to know them in order to be willing to fill out the forms.
Awesome. Thank you. Andrew, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, not really. I think having a physician is a requirement. You must have a physician who is licensed in the province of Alberta, and that's a requirement. The amount of time that you have to see them is completely dependent upon the condition and the comfort level of your physician. Some physicians, for example, may say with certain conditions that one meeting plus going through all of the records is sufficient for them to fill out the form. Others, and most of the time, I would say it's going to be months that they want to see that patient and to monitor their condition. But that's the conversation you want to have with your physician. And have that ongoing dialogue as you're going in saying, here's some of the ways it's affecting me. My disabilities are affecting me. Make sure your physician's aware of that. And one of the things I always tell people is ADLs. And it's not a one-way conversation. Your doctor should know about these things. If, for example, your doctor is going to be surprised that you struggle to make breakfast in the morning, that's not going to be helpful to them either in treating you or later on filling out this form. So make sure they're aware that you're having issues, for example, with ADLs, the basic activities around your house, be that cleaning, meal preparation, bathing. It affects people differently depending if it's a physical or mental disability, but it can always affect people. It can always affect ADLs, I should say.
Thank you. Here's another question. Once approved, does anyone monitor an AISH receiver's spending? So, Teresa, if you'd like to tackle that first.
No.
Awesome. We'll move on to another question then. How much income are you allowed to make on top of AISH funding? Andrew, if you'd like to tackle this first.
Sure, don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I'll give you some rough numbers.
I have them.
Oh, do you? I'm going to let Teresa handle this because she's going to talk
Yep.
about 1972 and
Awesome.
2012.
So a single exemption, the first 1,072 of net employment income is fully exempt. Any amount over 1,072 up to $2,900 is 50% exempt for a maximum exemption of 1,541 per month. And so that was single. And then for I can't read the notes. For families, the first 2,612 of the applicant and their cohabitating partners combined net employment income is fully exempt. Any amount above 2,612 up to 3,349 is 50% exempt for a maximum exemption of 2,981 per month. So an example would be is if you earned $1,000, your exemption would be 1,000, your monthly AISH would be the 18, and then your total would be the combined 1,000 plus your monthly AISH of 18, whatever the new amount is.
Awesome. And Teresa, those figures, do you know where people could find those if they want to look at them again?
I got them out of the financial benefits summary report.
Awesome. Thank you. We have time for one more quick question. So, is anyone other than a medical doctor allowed to fill out the AISH forms? For example, a psychologist. Andrew, would you like to tackle this one?
Yes. The answer to it is no. A psychologist may not fill out the form. Only a physician can fill out the form. That physician can be a family doctor or a specialist. So, for example, a psychiatrist can fill out the form, but not a psychologist. However, that psychologist may be extremely useful in the process. How? Because they may be able to provide reports to attach to the application or provide supportive letters to include with the application. So in short, it's got to be a medical doctor. It could be a specialist. I'm also just going to mention that I'm going to throw a link in the chat, and it is going to provide a little bit more detail around financial eligibility criteria and AISH policy.
Awesome. Thank you for that. All right. Thank you to everyone for sending in their questions. Let's stay connected. Find CPLEA online and on social media, Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also subscribe to our monthly e-newsletter to get the latest updates in the law and our resources. We have or will put a link to our feedback survey in the chat soon. You'll also be prompted to complete it when you exit the webinar. Please take 30 seconds to complete this survey and let us know how we did today. Thank you so much to everyone for attending, and thank you so much to Andrew Green and Teresa Makarewich for being our panelists today. Thank you for your amazing insight and your amazing answers to these questions. I'm sure they were very, very useful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, have a very nice rest of your afternoon, and thank you so much for attending this webinar.